On 9th of February 2022. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting will be recorded. Can I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Can I please remind you all to switch your phone to silent for the duration of the meeting? In addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meeting which have been previously circulated? Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either by the chat function or by raising your electronic hand by Teams? I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I am Councillor Saifur Rahman, the chair, and I'm present. I will now call on Chloe, the Democratic Service Officer, to take the roll call, please, Chloe.
Thank you, Chair. If March is present. Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Present, Chloe.
Had apologies from Councillor Steve Hunt. Councillor Chris James.
I'm present, Chloe.
Had apologies from Councillor Dennis Keogh. Councillor Simon Noyle.
I'm here, thanks, Chloe.
Had apologies from Councillor Alan Llewellyn and Councillor Sandra Miller. Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Yes, present, Chloe, yeah.
Councillor Suzanne Paterson.
Present.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
We've had apologies from Councillor Sonia Reynolds. Councillor Rachel Taylor.
Present.
And Councillor Aaron Wilcock.
Yes, present.
Then Cabinet members, Councillor Edward Latham.
Yeah, present, Chloe.
Councillor Leanne Jones says she is here, but her microphone isn't working, so I'll mark her as present. Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Apologies, Chloe, she's got a bereavement.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Harvey.
Yeah, present, Chloe.
Jones.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Chloe.
Councillor Peter Richards.
Present, Chloe.
And Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Councillor Wingrave has undergone a procedure on her eye, Chloe, so she won't be present today.
Thank you. And then officers, Karen Jones. Andrew Thomas.
Present, Chloe.
Andrew Jarrett.
Yeah, I'm present, Chloe.
Nicola Pierce. Hugh Jones.
Yep, I'm present, Chloe.
Ray Griffiths.
Present, Chloe.
Had apologies from Kerry Morris. Lana Bynan.
Present, Chloe.
Hinder. And Jane Woodman Ralph.
Present.
I can also see that Councillor Sonia Reynolds is in the meeting now, so I'll mark her as present. Have I missed anyone participating in today's meeting? I think that's everyone, Chair.
Thank you, Chloe. Moving on to Chair's announcement, item number 2 on the scrutiny agenda. We have chosen to scrutinise item 7 on the Cabinet agenda. We have chosen not to scrutinise any items on the Cabinet Finance sub-agenda, as we are happy with the recommendation contained within the report, and we're happy for it to go to Cabinet. The next item is declaration of interest. Can members please indicate whether they have any declaration of interest in relation to the items that we have chosen to scrutinise today? Okay, I don't see any indication. Thank you. Item 4 then on the scrutiny agenda is the pre-decision scrutiny. We will now move to the Cabinet papers, please. And the item we've to scrutinise is the item number 7 on the Cabinet agenda, which is the Housing Wales Act 2014, Gypsy and Travellers Accommodation Assessment. There are a couple of questions on this particular report from scrutiny members. So before I go to questions, can I ask the officer, I believe it's Lana Bainan, would you mind giving us a bit of an overview of the report, please, before I take questions?
Yes, of course, Chair. Good afternoon, members, officers. So the purpose of the report, it's a joint report and it's to agree the findings of the Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment 2022 and to authorise the submission of the GTAA report to the Welsh Ministers for approval, because Part 3 of the Housing Wales Act 2014 requires places a duty on local authorities to undertake a new GTAA every 5 years. And where the assessment identifies an unmet need for mobile home pitches, it must make provision for the identified need. So we undertook the study in-house using the Welsh Government guidance with help from, so obviously planning policy, estates, social services, vulnerable learner services, local area coordinators, housing colleagues. We produced the Gypsy and Traveller assessment, and it identified a need. There was no need for pitches in the next 5 years, which is 2021 to 2026, but there was a need for 10 pitches in the longer term, 2027 to 2036. So what we'll do now, once we've received approval from Cabinet, we will submit it to the Welsh Government and they will review the report, and then once they approve it, then whatever need is identified, then we'll have to meet that need.
Okay, thank you, Lana, for the overview. I'm going to go straight to question then. So can I ask Nigel, please? You've had a question that you wanted to ask on this report.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'd just like to wish Councillor Annette Wingrave a speedy recovery as well after learning she's having a procedure. What I'd like to know really is there any why is there no provision for the travelling community in O'Valley's areas? Is there any reason for that? Thanks.
Lana, would you?
Well, we've undertaken the survey. As you know, we've currently got 3 sites. And there's 2 in Britain Ferry and there's 1 in Caigaro. And yes, indeed, they are all along the coastal corridor. There is 1 private site as well, I believe, in Margam. But when we undertake the survey, there is a need for public sites. So this is what's been, I mean, it's historically these sites have been within the county borough, but the need that's been identified, obviously there is a need now, and we will look to look for additional pitches if that's a requirement. Obviously, we need to wait for the Welsh Government to approve the study first, and then as part of the candidate sites process for the local development plan, we'll start looking, and anybody can submit sites for, you know, there could be uses such as Gypsy and Traveller pitch provision. So we'll look then at that point. So I think the first thing we need to do is wait for Welsh Government to approve this report to know if we have got a need, and then we'll start looking. And it could be, you know, with regard to where that need goes, we'll have to look into that in a bit more detail, because what we tend to find is that the Gypsy and Traveller community like to live together, and I think the need that's been shown is that it's household formation from the existing sites. So I mean, that we've got all the raw data, and we can, you know, we can criticise, well, not criticise, really look in detail of what those findings have shown from all the interviews that we've undertaken. But I think that's what we need to do. We need to wait for Welsh Government to approve this report, and then we can take the next step then on where we look for to meet the need.
Nigel, you're happy with the response? Arwen, did you want to come in on that particular question, or?
Yeah, with your indulgence, Chair, yes.
Yes, please do.
Nigel raises an important point, of course, and if we look at the at page 13, Chair, under the heading there, GTAA 2022 study findings, it makes reference with a final bullet point there at the bottom of page 13 to travelling show people. And there is a site in Bryn Aman that has been developed for a considerable amount of time. I think it was back in the early 1970s, where the travelling show people have located. They purchased a portion of land there, which was the former train station in Bryn Aman. There were two train stations in Bryn Aman, one GWR, one LMS, I think, if I remember rightly. Now, albeit that this site is on the Carmarthenshire side, it is right bang on the boundary with Neath Port Talbot, because it's right on the banks of the River Aman, which of course is the dividing line between Neath Port Talbot and Carmarthenshire. So, you know, that I'm sure that, and we had a brief chat about this in briefing beforehand, and I mentioned that to Nigel. So he raises a very important point, but just to point out that there is one in Bryn Aman, albeit on the Carmarthenshire side, very, very close to the Neath Port Talbot boundary. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Before I call Lynette, Suzanne, I've noticed you've had your hand raised. Did you want to ask?
No, it's okay, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Lynette, please, next.
Thank you. Apologies for not attending pre-briefing. Say it was a award issue that was more complicated than I anticipated. Well, I read this with great interest, and there is a contradiction here which I would like to have clarified. On page 13, it says there were no unauthorised encampments during the time that this survey was carried out. But on page 37, it then says there was one unauthorised encampment, and it refers to it as only one. Now, only implies that it's not terribly important when it's on your own ward and it's actually blocking access to the comprehensive school on a Sunday night and the school buses are due to arrive on the Monday morning. Only really doesn't sum it up. However, as a result of that experience on my ward, I then drilled down into this, and throughout the report it says that there is no identification of a need for a transit site. So I have two questions. First of all, the very nature of people transiting through our ward means they cannot have been involved in any interviews, because they weren't there before, they weren't there afterwards, they were passing through. But critically, what I want to know is, if we are accepting, and that's what the report seems to be saying, that there is no need for a transit site, where do they go? If they turn up on in our patch and they need to stay there for a few days, because in this case they've got a member of their family in hospital, where do they go other than where they ended up? And the final just tiny point, and I would like an answer from an officer about that last question, on page 43, in 4.3.3, there's a typo. It's referring to ethnic groups as opposed to ethnic. That's just a minor issue, but it's this issue about transit. I'd really like to have some elaboration on that, please.
Okay, thank you, Lynette. Your question to the typo, that's noted. I'm sure officer will get that resolved. Back to question one then. Lana, would you want to
Yes.
come in? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Purcell. With regard to transit sites, yes, there's no need, but Future Wales, the National Development Plan, states that gypsy and traveller accommodation should be assessed at the regional level, and that will now be a requirement when the Corporate Joint Committee is formed, which I believe it has been established, that there will be a team and a subcommittee that will look at a strategic development plan. And transit sites are needed. You need to, when you look at transit sites, you need to look at the whole of sort of South Wales almost to have an understanding of where would be the best location for a transit site. Because I think Swansea might have one, because we've been discussing, we've had steering groups and we've had adjoining authorities discussions as well, because we need to speak to what our neighbours are doing. But that the transit site should be discussed as part of a regional sort of collaboration. And as I say, that will be addressed as part of the strategic development plan when that is formulated.
Thank you, Lana. Lynette, do you want to come back?
No, I'm okay with that, thanks. As long as the whole concept of a transit site is not just being dismissed, because the fact that they arrive, try to stay here and move on means we do need a transit site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lynette. Anybody else has any questions or anything you wish to scrutinize in this report? If you could indicate. No, okay. Right, you can see the recommendations are on page 16. There are two, but I will take them in their entirety. Can I please have a proposal and a second for these recommendations to go to cabinet, please? If you could, yes. Thank you. Second, please.
Second, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. We did say that we're not going to be scrutinizing the members' community fund, so there are no further item. There are no urgent item either. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending today. I know it's been a short meeting, but the agenda has been quite short today, which I'm sure none of you are complaining. So thank you very much. And those who are invited or asked to join the cabinet straight after this meeting, please follow the link on your calendar. Thank you all.
Thanks very much.